you will discover 5 traits of highly successful and profitable podcast hosts. Hello, my name is Anthony Winery.
I'm Ty Gaucher.
So look, Ty, over the last 150 plus episodes, doesn't that feel nostalgic? I don't know if nostalgic is the right word. However, over the last 150 episodes, we've had the pleasure, the privilege of having tons of highly successful and profitable podcasts come on our shows. Podcasters getting millions of downloads per month share their knowledge with our audience. And now, after having several of them, more than, I don't know how many at this point now, but a lot, come onto the show and share their value bombs, I think it's time that we distill some of the traits and trends we're seeing of, again, the podcasters who are extremely successful and highly profitable. So with that being said, Tig, trait number 1.
Number 1, they are relentless. Anthony, I'm going to pass this one right back to you because I know that's a word that you particularly love. Talk us through that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's simply put, we've had so many podcasters when they come on, they share their story, and it all goes the same way. Things are going well, then we take a massive dip. Someone, for example, like Martin Hewlett, host of the Calming Anxiety podcast, I think he was like 300,000 downloads per month, I believe, and then he took a massive dip after, again, growing consistently for years and years, and he had just 1 month where his listenership dropped by 60%. Most people that would wipe them out, most people will stop, quit, and just be scratching their head saying, oh my God, I've done all this work and I'm completely devastated. But he didn't. And I remember when I asked Martin, dude, how did you pull this off? How did you get back on your horse and keep pushing forward and tug? What he said to me was pretty gangster. Time froze. We locked eyes. Everything went silent. And he says to me, those are the moments where you show the universe what you're made of. Those are the moments where you double down and you look at analytics and you ask yourself the important question, could I be doing this better? How could I be doing this better?
Time froze and it was gangster. That at the time, that sounds more like philosophical and romantic to me, really. But that's, yeah, I mean, it's impactful. Let's shake on that one. Basically, the translation here for practical real life uses, don't let any summer slumps or anything like that. The kind of real life translation I'm getting here that any listener can take is, the people who have sat through it and really made it to the top with their podcast, they are not getting beat down by any summer slumps or anything like that. They eat that for breakfast, take it in their stride and keep pushing through, which is a lot easier said than done. But, over the span of years, it really makes a huge difference because there's so many points where things can happen with a podcast and people quit, right? But these people don't. Amazing. And that was being relentless as a trait. The second trait is being focused. Now, this is something that is very hard for most podcasters that have a business and the podcast is a part of what they're doing rather than their sole full-time gig, really. You have so many things that you're running. You also have a family and a social life and all these things outside of it. But the podcast isn't even the main way you're probably getting clients right now or customers or really getting what you do out there. So it's so hard to be able to give it the due focus that it needs. It really, really is. But the paradox is that it also has to be done to really take things to the next level, right? And for a lot of people, I think the loop they never fully close is really deciding, am I going to choose to give this the focus to make this happen and give this the focus it needs so that I can make it into, a reliable lead gen source, a reliable way to get in front of people? Or am I going to kind of half step it, keep running the show, but, never really go all in, and then I still ultimately have to rely on all these other ways of getting business?
Yeah, no, I think you're completely right. It is difficult. It is hard. And it's a conversation that a highly successful podcasters with profitable shows all have with themselves, and they make that decision to say, you know what, I'm going to focus on the podcast and I'm going to make this work and figure it out. That focus was there. And really, I guess relentless being focused, they kind of feel the same thing. Imagine being relentless and focused at the same time. Now that is a great concoction. That's a great concoction.
Yeah, is a great concoction. And because they are slightly different. You can be relentless, but not focused. And then you're just going in a million different directions and not really actually moving the needle, even you're working so hard. So you really do need both.
And I'll probably say that's a lot of podcasters who are out there right now, right?
Yeah. For sure.
Trait number 3, experimental. This comes up so often. So many podcasters who we speak to who are successful, they've always experimented. They've never gone stale with their strategy. They've always tried something new when something's not working. They've always faced reality and said, you know what, I'm just going to just try what I can in a focused way. So that they're never, again, it's not like they're just sporadically trying 1,000 different things at once. They're saying, you know what, I'm going to try social media for a prolonged period of time and see if it works. Okay, I've done this for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It's not working. Cool. I now can just mark that off as a strategy that I know does not work. And then at that point, because they're focused, they just let go of it. And then they move on to the next thing. Okay, I'm going to go on, be a guest on other people's shows. and they experiment with all these different strategies until they find something that works. And they also experiment with their shows, with the format of their shows. They're not just, oh no, I'm going to keep doing my interviews or I'm going to keep my podcast an hour long when, let's say, they have a retention time that's 50%. They're open to experimenting and changing things up. And that leads to new unlocks and new levels of their growth.
Absolutely. There's a certain stubbornness that comes the more times you do things week on week, right? The
That's
more resistance to change. But again, it's so counterintuitive because actually being a bit more loose and not just randomly, but when you know something isn't working, being quick to change that is huge. Moving on to number 4, we have passionate yet non-emotional. This is a trait I haven't actually heard of before, I have to say. It's a bit of a mix-up, isn't it? Difficult to put into words, but really what we're getting at is there's a very fine balance between loving doing the podcast and being attached to it. And obviously it is your baby. It's just always hands up. But also knowing that you might have to kill that baby to get what you want.
That's hella dramatic. But yeah, you might have to kill the baby. The baby being your podcast, of course. I don't condone killing actual babies.
Nope, me neither, actually. But
wouldn't recommend it.
Nope. Definitely not. Again, it really comes back to loving what you do, but also knowing when it's time to make a change, yeah? Knowing that if being able to go and get objective feedback and actually implement that, even if it does mean dropping a part of the podcast that you actually really liked doing, knowing if it's not going to be the best for the growth or for your listeners. And that is a hard thing to do. I hope I'm putting this one into words in a way that's understandable, because it really is a fine balance.
Yeah, again, it feeds into the last one about being experimental. I think oftentimes when we speak to podcasters who might be struggling to grow, they're so attached because, again, it is their baby. They've started this thing, they've poured so much time and energy into it, and they have an idea and they believe the idea is good and the content might be good. But again, if you're unable to let go and experiment and try something new with your show, maybe a different format, maybe a different style, maybe different targeting, if you can't let go and detach your emotions, you're always going to get in your own way. So I think it's true. You have got to be passionate, but also be able to, again, like we've spoke about, be non-emotional about like just what's best for your show and serving your audience. So far we've covered being relentless, just taking a step forward every single day, keeping focused with the podcast, prioritizing it, making it a thing of focus on your day to day, making it something that you will have to get done, being experimental, having the playful attitude when something's not working, being able to let it go and try something new, and being passionate yet non-emotional. So the ability to actually say, you know what, I love my show, I want to grow it some more. But also, if I need to change things up, I'm open to doing that. I'm not so attached that I'm going to get in my own way from making progress and serving my audience the best that I can. So the final trait, which I think is super important, and we've seen again in tons and tons of podcasters who are successful and profitable, is they are analytical. Now, this one's a lot more practical, and I guess, practically speaking, the other one's a bit more mindset related, but this one's a lot more practical. They look at the analytics, they know their numbers, they know their retention time, they're tracking, their growth rates month over month over month, and they're also tracking whether or not a strategy is working or not. If someone like Gary Arndt getting millions of downloads per month, the podcast called Everything Everywhere, again, phenomenal podcaster. And he literally worked out the maths of, okay, how much money, if I want to do this full time, how many episodes do I need to put out each week? Turns out I have to do a daily show. Why do you have to do a daily show? Because he realized and worked out the maths that if he wanted to get more ad revenue, he needed to have a certain number of downloads. So he just reverse engineered it. He was analytical. He reverse engineered his goal, looked at the numbers, and then just did it. He relentlessly worked on doing a daily show, stayed focused on becoming monetized. He experimented with different ways of formatting and actually writing the shows, and he wasn't emotional about what he wanted. He just looked at the numbers, and he was passionate about it, but was non-emotional. When he looked at the numbers, being analytical, he made the decision to make a daily show, and he went for it. And I think that's a great representation and an encapsulation of really what it means to be a successful podcast. And by the way, we're saying this, but it's not bloody easy. Doing all these things aren't easy. If not, everyone would be there. But it's at least being aware of these things and knowing, hey, these are the traits I have to try to maybe abide by. And maybe for me, we haven't got all of those. That's things that we have to work on. So for you, what are some of the traits that you do have and you're smashing, you can double down on? And what are some other traits that you realize, like, actually, this is holding me back, not letting go of what I think I should have for my show? Maybe I should be a bit more analytical. I've been scared of my numbers so far. So what are the traits that you have that you double down on? And what are the traits that you don't have that you start working more on in order to build your own successful and profitable podcast?